Hello. This video is a mashup from the commentary of two very likable chess personalities in a game of AlphaZero versus Stockfish. And if you're familiar with them, you can see I've animated Agadmator and Anna Rudolf, then mixed in some scenes from a classic film called Meet John Doe for a little extra commentary. This Frank Capra movie was released in 1941 and stars Gary Cooper along with Barbara Stanwyk. It's basically a social statement film, and I thought it played well against a game featuring artificial intelligence. I highly recommend watching the movie too. It's got a nice comic angle to its general theme of how the common man is taken advantage of by the rich and powerful. So, enough of the intro. I'll drop out and let Agadmator and Anna take it from here. I hope you enjoyed this take on the game, and be on the lookout for Hoodie Guy.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another AlphaZero vs Stockfish game.
Tonight we give you something entirely new and different.
In December 2017, an artificial intelligence system stunned the chess community by defeating the strongest chess engine in the world.
Had any schooling?
Yeah, a little.
DeepMind's AlphaZero learned to play chess on its own, with the only input being the rules of the game.
You were so all alone.
Then, after only 4 hours of self-play, it was capable of winning a match against the world champion of engines, Stockfish.
I'm beginning to like this.
If you ask me, Hank, you're playing around with dynamite.
No, the gal's right.
In this video, we are going to take a look at a game that DeepMind has just released.
But it's extremely enjoyable and, well, I hope you will enjoy it as well.
This can arouse national interest.
See how the playing style and attacking chess of AlphaZero compares to computers and to humans.
So, not one, but actually two Hoodie Guys.
Just a quick note here. The Hoodie Guy is a well-known character for those of you who follow Agadmator's channel. He didn't actually mention the Hoodie Guy in his video about this game, but I took the opportunity to add Mr. Hoodie Guy into the mix. I thought it'd be a fun little gimmick, but you be the judge.
But okay, without further ado, Alpha has the white pieces and we have knight to f3.
Knight f6 and c4. One of the favorite openings of AlphaZero is the English opening.
What we need is fireworks. People are going to hit with sledgehammers.
And Mr. Hoodie Guy, I'm wearing the hoodie to honor both Hoodie Guys. So, okay, e6, knight to c3 and bishop to b4 now. The English opening, but the Nimzo variation of the English with bishop to b4.
Wants fireworks, huh? Okay.
Queen c2, castle, a3.
Asking black, what do you want to do with the bishop?
You're not the free and happy guy you used to be.
Do you want to go back or do you want to trade on c3? We have bishop captures on c3, queen captures on c3, and
So far everything is normal.
This is his opening attack on you, Governor. Take my word for it.
now a5.
After a5, b4, d6.
Here, Alpha actually plays e3, and this is a new move.
You made it up.
You said you wanted fireworks.
So Alpha actually doesn't mind if Stockfish goes for this knight to e4 idea.
But no, he has a better idea.
But let's see what Alpha had in mind. Stockfish goes for it, knight to e4, attacks the queen, prepares knight to g5 to trade off knights. We have queen to c2, and now comes knight to g5.
This is the first moment I wanted to highlight in this game.
What makes him do it, Ann?
After the knight move, knight g5, this pawn on b4 is hanging. Black is threatening to take it. There's a pin on the a file. A natural move to prevent this threat would be bishop to b2, defending the rook. And if a takes b4, a takes b4, rook takes a1 check, bishop takes a1. There's a trade on f3, for instance, and this is just a normal position. A very human-like position.
I had no idea what was going on.
You didn't.
No.
But AlphaZero prefers to play b5, keep more pieces on the board.
Now, then comes the drama.
You already start to see a theme here. In pretty much all of Alpha's games where it has the white pieces, Alpha will push pawns on the queen side, grab as much space as possible on the queen side, and will completely disregard the pawn structure of the king side.
An idea that's brought thousands of them here from all over the country.
And Mr. Hoodie Guy, but okay. So basically, you want to overextend on the queen side, mess up your pawn structure on the king side, and then you will have a very nice game.
Because he wants to attract attention.
That's what basically Alpha is teaching us.
He can say anything he wants and they'll listen to him.
And at the same time, he doesn't mind that after the trade on f3, knight takes f3, check, g takes f3, queen f6 is a double attack.
Now stop and cold. Don't worry, I've been ready for this.
It picks up a pawn since both the rook and the f3 pawn are hanging.
We have d4. Alpha says no problem, I'm just gonna create this very nice strong center here.
See?
Very pretty. Very pretty indeed.
Queen captures on f3 and now rook to g1. The rook is attacked on h1 and now you gain the semi-open g file for attack. The bishop is coming to b2 at some point, so already you can see that white will definitely have compensation for the pawn.
Well, you're catching on.
Knight d7, developing the knight heading toward f6, and now simply bishop e2, queen f6 and bishop b2.
So already you can see that there's a lot of coordination amongst white's pieces.
And I think it's terrific. What do you think of that?
And black, it's only move 15, but black really doesn't have a good move here.
Boom, just like that, you're going to bury him.
You've just put your queen on f6. There's no square for the knight available.
Yeah, that's what I mean, see?
You can't go here or here, the pawns are covering that. If you go b6, you're only gonna be a target for c5 later, and you don't really have anywhere to go from here. You can't develop the rook, you can't develop the bishop until you develop the knight.
And that's all right, isn't it?
You betcha.
Yeah.
So here, Stockfish is forced to play again with the queen. Queen to h4.
Attacking the h2 pawn, AlphaZero, instead of defending this pawn with a move like rook g2, which might be a little passive, or bishop f3, which is improving the bishop, and in case of queen takes h2, rook h1 would trap the queen.
You go ahead and do it.
So bishop f3 could be a very human-like move, a human way of continuing the game, minding that this pawn cannot be captured.
Funny, huh?
What did AlphaZero do? None of these, of course.
Hey, and this is the old fakeroo, isn't it?
He plays rook g4.
Forces the queen to capture on h2.
What?
But for that, the rook now has a super active square on g4, and in the future, a queenside castle, and this rook might come to g1, and then white will have double rooks on the g file.
But no!
So okay, queen captures on h2.
This is the second pawn sacrifice in the game.
Oh boy, this is terrific.
And after queen takes h2, what was the big plan? Why did he sacrifice a second pawn?
What are you after? I mean, what do you want?
To retreat to g3 with the rook.
It's a very nice move. It's a hard move to understand.
You know as well as I do that this whole thing is being engineered by a vicious man with a vicious purpose.
What's the point of rook g3?
I've been trying to figure it out.
Well, in many positions, knight f6 would come with a tempo. So it already thinks about moving away the rook from this move and at the same time restricting the black's queen's mobility.
They got you. Yes, sir, they got you.
So after rook g3, Stockfish plays f5. Very logical,
Yeah, maybe.
because it wants to close the king side, defend the h7 pawn. Castle queenside, logical, to bring the second rook as well to the king side.
And when they got you, you got no more chance than a road rabbit.
But this move offers yet another pawn.
Trying to sell you something.
So yes, it's a developing move, bringing all the pieces of white to the attack.
Now your whole life is messed up with a lot more stuff.
But the f2 pawn could have been captured if Stockfish wanted to,
You didn't.
No.
although it was a very risky choice.
Anna, of course, going after the g7 pawn.
After rook g1, rook s7, rook 1 to g2 is what I analyzed.
Anna Rudolf, congratulations, you play like AlphaZero.
I gotta give you credit, Annie girl.
Queen e1 check, bishop d1. And there's certainly lots of play for the sacrifice material, but let's just remember that white has already given up three pawns.
He's asking for a miracle to happen.
This is one example of how the game could have continued if the f2 pawn was captured. Still nothing concrete going on. White is 3 pawns down, but all the white pieces are active and attacking, while black has a very vulnerable king and his pieces are not in harmony, not developed, and they are not coordinating very well. 3 pawns sacrificed.
And you squirm and you duck and you holler and you try to push them away, but you haven't got a chance. They got you.
So a crazy position, and Stockfish, Mr. Hoodie guy, does not capture the pawn.
If this isn't the craziest, the battiest, the looniest wild goose chase I ever heard of.
Shut up, Bert.
Rook to f7, prepares to defend here.
And now bishop f3 threatens to win the queen with rook h1. So black has to go back, queen h4.
And now rook to h1. Queen has to go back to f6, and now king to b1. A nice prophylactic move.
And you can quote me on that.
The king is coming to a1, from where it will feel much safer.
Hey, you're okay.
He doesn't mind that he's 2 pawns down.
Well, I'm glad to hear somebody admit it.
He doesn't care that he would need to prove immediately with the initiative and with some brilliant attack what he has as a compensation for the sacrificed material.
Lighthouses in a foggy world.
AlphaZero thinks about chess in a completely different way.
Now I guess I'm not average anymore. Now I'm getting all sorts of attention. From big shots, too.
Since the only input that was programmed into AlphaZero,
Mr. Hoodie guy,
are the rules, how the pieces move. It doesn't have a value system that we stick to. It doesn't count pawns as 1 point, a bishop and knight as 3, a rook as 5. It doesn't give a numeric value to the pieces.
That's a lot of hooey.
It values chess and sees chess in a completely different way. And that's why these games are brilliant, because suddenly we can also start seeing this ancient board game from a completely different perspective, from an alien-like, superhuman-like perspective.
Me? Well, certainly, with your ability to influence people, it might grow into a glorious movement.
We have g6 and now rook g to g1. Here, black has now created this barrier, and white now has different plans.
Say, let's get something straight here. I don't want any part of this thing.
This rook is now coming to c1 with the ideas of playing c5 and b6. Here, Anna says that
You might wonder why.
Gee whiz, I'm all mixed up.
Well, after g6, black is threatening f4.
Naturally, I won't say anything.
It was not possible earlier, since the h7 pawn would have been hanging in case of this push. So the f pawn can now be advanced after g6, and white simply moves away with the rook from it. It could be asked, why not rook to h3? Attacking on the h file, right? Isn't it what white wants, a kingside attack?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, there isn't so much of an attack going on h7, since it's defended by the rook, and black can also bring the knight if necessary. So what is the rook doing on g1, you might ask?
I don't get it.
You shall soon see.
white now has different plans. This rook is now coming to c1 with the ideas of playing c6 and c5 and b6.
Black would love to develop the c8 bishop.
The problem of the average man of all the John Does in the world.
But he can't push b6 because of the pin on the long diagonal.
Funny, huh?
He would need to play rook b8 and then b6 in order to push b6 and then bishop b7. But that takes ages.
Well, I ain't waiting another minute.
And also the a5 pawn could be vulnerable. It pushes a4 so that it gains some space on the queen side. But still, it doesn't solve black's development issues. And that is basically what AlphaZero sees in this position, that his pieces, all the white pieces, are very active.
I could feel that they were hungry for something. You know what I mean?
AlphaZero loves activity, mobility, and it also loves when the opponent has basically the opposite, struggling with moving, struggling to mobilize its pieces.
Maybe they're just lonely and wanted somebody to say hello to. I know how they feel. I've been lonely and hungry for something practically all my life.
So that is what it sees for the two pawns, and plays after a4 the move king to a1. When I saw this move, I was like, what on earth.
This one has certainly got me spinning.
But yeah, king a1, yet another prophylactic move.
And you can quote me on that.
White is not in a rush at all because black is struggling. Black is struggling to find a way to coordinate its pieces.
He meets discouragement. He finds the world his feet of clay. His ideals crumble. So what does he do?
Now comes rook to g7. Black has to wait and see what white will do, as there's really no way to develop here for black.
e4, finally the moment arrived when white starts to open up the position.
So?
This is what we know as humans, right?
Oh, yeah.
When you have the initiative, when all your pieces are developed and the opponent is lacking development, the opponent is struggling to finish his development, and you should open up the position. And that is what AlphaZero is doing. This move is totally human-like, of course.
He pours out his soul to me.
So f4, and now comes c5.
Let's continue trying to open up the position. Open fives, open diagonals.
If d captures, then you open up this dark square diagonal. This will be too strong for white, so you don't want to do this.
Arguments will start.
Queen to e7 is played, and now comes rook to c1 as planned.
Here we go! That rook suddenly appears on the queen side. Who said that white can only attack on the king side?
And dear, you're very clever.
Yeah, I know.
Knight to f6, finally black manages to develop some pieces, and now comes e5. We have d captures on e5, and now rook h to e1 before recapturing.
Yes, tons of pawns down, but he doesn't care.
Yes.
Wow.
He has just opened up the e file, and if black takes on d4, capturing yet another pawn, then he would be in trouble after queen c4. Queen takes d4 next move, and the long diagonal is a killer.
That's what I like about it. Right to the point, like that.
White's pieces are way too active, the attack is very strong. This position, I don't think, can be held.
So after rook h to e1, we have e4. Bishop captures on e4, and now if you play knight captures on e4, you get queen captures on e4, and there is the threat of d5, and then white will release the power of the dark square bishop.
The greed, the lust, the hate, the fear, all of man's inhumanity to man.
Even if you block with c6, white will still play d5, and after c captures, queen captures on f4, and then after the queen assumes the d4 or e5 square, you will have the constant problem of this rook being stuck on g7, as you will not want to allow queen to h8.
Wolves, John. Wolves. Waiting to cut up the John Does.
So, after bishop captures on e4, we have queen to f8.
This was my favorite moment of the game. So far we have seen that AlphaZero loves mobility, activity, doesn't mind giving up material, it doesn't mind that there's no immediate compensation. Actually, it loves sacrificing material
Captures
for long-term strategic advantages.
It's a hopeful sign that a simple idea like this can sweep the country.
But he has to do something. He has to continue improving his position.
An idea based on friendliness, on giving and not taking, on helping your neighbor and asking nothing in return.
So, what he does here is a move that Stockfish did not see at all.
Oh, give me a chance,
All right, come in.
At least not my Stockfish.
Hey, and this is the old Fakeroo, isn't it?
I analyzed this game with Stockfish on my computer, and I left this position with Stockfish on for a long time, trying to see if Stockfish will recommend me the move that AlphaZero played in this position. I chose the top 10 moves of Stockfish, and none of them even mentioned the move that's coming now.
Hey, boss, get a load of this.
Pawn to d5. Yes, it opens up the long diagonal, but it's another pawn sacrifice.
Well, you go ahead and try. You couldn't do it in a million years.
I mean, when you look at this, it seems like an impossible move, Mr. Hoodie Guy, because of course d5 is protected by the pawn and the knight.
I guess I've seen everything now.
but Alpha doesn't care.
You're right, that's true. You're quite right, Levy.
Alpha just wants to release the dark square bishop, and now comes pawn captures on d5.
White will play another retreating move, bishop to d3, like as if nothing happened.
It's a very daring thing we're attempting. These are daring times, Mr. Barrington. We're coming to a new order of things.
3 pawns down, bishop coming back to d3, life is great. This is how AlphaZero plays.
And now, now this bishop is strong, but black also can develop now. Bishop to g4.
So there's going to be a new order of things, huh?
And what does AlphaZero do? Well, sacrifice yet another pawn. Of course.
You forgot one detail, Mr. Big Shot. You forgot me.
f3. Now this pawn is poisoned.
That's the main idea.
If you capture on f3, then comes the rook to f1, and after you move the bishop, then rook captures on f4, and when you open up the f-file, now this rook is coming to f1, and with the double rooks and the bishop, it will be an overwhelming position to defend.
I like what we got here. I like it.
So f3 finally is a pawn sacrifice that actually can't be accepted.
And that's all right, isn't it?
You betcha.
Yeah.
Bishop back to d7, and now queen to c3. AlphaZero slowly starts improving his position even further. So the queen is now on the long diagonal, and after knight h5, he improves the rook.
Yeah, that's what I mean, see? It was easy as all that, huh?
Now Alpha wants to double up on the e-file. We have c6 as Alpha did not capture on d5. Stockfish now wants to defend his d5 pawn. Rook c to e1 doubling up, and now comes knight back to f6.
What shall we do if we are AlphaZero?
Well, come on, spring it. You've got something on your mind. It must be stupendous.
Well, improve the position even further. In a very positional way, just tiny steps of improving, progressing.
And if a thing like this can happen, don't let any of your grumbling friends tell you that humanity is falling apart.
Queen d4. The queen is better on d4 than on c3. And just remember, we are only 3 pawns down.
Funny, huh?
So why hurry? Queen to d4.
Going after the f4 pawn, and now comes pawn captures on b5. And now even bishop to b1.
Let me replay this move. Bishop to b1. Yes. What is the bishop doing on b1?
I don't get it.
Preparing in some lines for this bishop to come to a2 and attack the d5 pawn from here. We have bishop to c6 defending, and now comes rook to e6. And now with there being a triple attack against the knight,
Stockfish decides to sacrifice the knight. Knight h5 could have been played, not that black's sufferings would have ended here.
That's the main idea.
Is that so?
But it decides that he would rather give up the knight on f6.
And now white will execute the plan that was already possible before, and that is rook to g1, now transferring attention to the g6 pawn. We have queen to g7.
And once again, it would be possible to take this knight, but AlphaZero doesn't care.
Get off that righteous horse of yours and come to your senses.
It takes the pawn instead, because this pawn was more important to AlphaZero than the knight.
Well, hold on a minute, young man. Hold on. That's rather big talk.
Rook to e8, offering to trade rooks, but now rook to d6. And here knight to d7, opening up an attack against white's queen, but there is an attack against the black queen as well.
Hey, pretty nifty, huh?
So queen to c1, white of course doesn't want to trade queens.
So you go after what the other fellas got.
We have rook to f6, offering a rook for this bishop, but of course this bishop is too powerful.
And there you are.
This bishop pair is like an upgraded queen when you look at the squares they're covering. This is insane.
You're right. That's true. You're quite right, Levy.
And we don't want to give it up for an exchange. Bishop takes f6 would be like, oh no, that was my best piece. It's such a beast on b2, on the long diagonal. I don't want to give it up for an exchange.
You kept growing bigger and bigger and bigger, and pretty soon you were as big as you are now.
So that's what AlphaZero does too. f4.
Alpha just wants to push f5 and bust open the king side.
Don't ask me how I know, I just know.
We have queen to e7.
AlphaZero believes that this bishop is stronger and more necessary for his attack than the rook.
I get the idea. Yeah, maybe.
So he has to take on f6 with either the rook or the bishop, and he chooses the rook. Rook takes f6! Exclamation mark.
And don't pull that on me neither.
Stop worrying, Colonel.
Knight captures and now f5. If you allow f captures on g6, the game is over. So Stockfish tries not to allow this. Queen to e3 was played.
Stockfish finally manages to trade queens.
You got me.
After queen e3, f takes g6. Yes, he's losing some of the pawns that he gained during the entire game.
With all of it?
Yes, you're sore at the world. Come on now.
Oh, crabby guy, huh?
Yeah.
Queen takes c1, g takes h7, check. Intermediate move, very important. King f7, and now rook takes c1.
And here is what Alpha calculated.
Oh, you did, huh?
Yeah.
Now you have to capture the pawn and give up this knight.
What?
There's no way around it. If you try to play something like rook h8, then rook to f1 wins the knight. There's no way for you to protect the knight.
Hey, goodbye, Mr. Doe.
Goodbye, Mr. Doe.
Any other ideas like rook to e6 to protect the knight lose, of course, to then you're no longer protecting the back rank.
That's pretty silly.
And if you try to play something like king to g7 to not allow the pin, then comes rook to g1. And again, if you go king to h8, you get bishop to f6 checkmate.
Hey, pretty nifty, huh?
So you have to go back, and now there is a nice mating attack with bishop to g6, but you can also just play rook to f1 and win the piece and win the game.
I should have been there. I could have helped him.
So here Stockfish is forced to play knight captures on h7. We have bishop captures on h7.
So finally!
You gotta listen to me, everybody!
AlphaZero is a piece up, as he could have been 10 moves ago, but he didn't want to have material up. He prefers mobility, activity, and just simply having a position where he has all the play, all the control, and the opponent struggles to find activity.
And you squirm and you duck and you holler and you try to push them away, but you haven't got a chance. They got you.
And now rook to e3. So here Alpha is of course up a piece. This is now a winning position, but Stockfish is still up 2 pawns. So how will Alpha do this?
Wait a minute, let me get this through this lame brain of mine.
Alpha will now push back the rook, activate the king, and use the dark squares to enter black's king side here via b4, a5, b6, and that's the plan. Now it's only a matter of realizing that plan.
You bet I will, just as fast as I can.
It isn't very difficult to win this position for humans either.
Hold on, that's rather big talk.
Nobody knows the answer to that one, and certainly not you.
But we are going to see the AlphaZero way of converting this into a full point.
You go ahead and do it.
Rook to d1, king to e8, we have king to a2, bishop to d7, bishop to d4, kicking away the rook, rook to h3, and the bishop goes back. Bishop e6, now comes rook to e1, pinning the bishop, now king to d7 defending the bishop, and now king to b2. So slowly but surely the king is finding his way up the board.
Rook f3, and now improving further. Rook e5, rook g3. The g3 rook is cutting the white king, and therefore rook e3, offering this trade of rooks.
If you trade rooks, then it's all over.
Oh, please let me go. They're crucifying him. I can help him. Sorry.
Rook to g2, and now king can finally come up the board.
Ladies and gentlemen, this certainly looks like the end of the John Doe movement.
We have rook here. Now you can't go king to b4 because your bishop is hanging. So first rook to f3. King goes back.
You're lucky they didn't run you out of the country.
And now rook to f2. Rook to g3 check. Even if you keep the rook here.
Please listen to me. Please, I can explain everything.
Then after this rook comes to d2, the bishop will be protected and the king will be able to go up the board. So black doesn't have to wait for that.
It'll do you no good.
Rook to g3 check. King b4, rook to g4.
John, why don't you forget this foolishness?
Pinning the bishop and attacking it, but now rook to d2 as planned.
They're laughing at me.
Bishop to d7, now comes king to a5.
Have you seen him yet? Have you?
Now listen, Ann, he can't possibly get in without our seeing him.
There we go, the white king has arrived. Rook f4. Now improving the bishop, because it has done its job on the 4th rank, covering up for the king.
Is that screwball still around?
Rook goes back, and now rook to d3, not allowing this pawn to be captured. We have rook to f2 attacking the bishop, bishop to d1, and now comes bishop to c6. And now comes king to b6. This is move 67, and it was in this position that Stockfish resigned the game.
Please don't give up. We'll start all over again.
There is nothing to be done here.
If it's worth dying for, it's worth living for.
And Alpha again created a masterpiece, as Alpha does.
Certainly didn't give that man much of a chance.
I thought that this game was fascinating.
It's bigger than your ambitions, and it's bigger than all the bracelets and fur coats in the world.
You bet it is, John!
I loved the multiple pawn sacrifices, and that there was nothing concrete about any of them.
It may be the one thing capable of saving this cockeyed world.
So yeah, that's basically what Alpha taught us here. Just push the pawns as far as you can on the queen side, weaken the dark squares, and then ruin your pawn structure on the king side as well. Grab some open lines, sacrifice more pawns, and win the game.
You bet it is, John!
And that's exactly what I'm going down there to tell those people.
So try that in your own games and see how it goes. Best of luck to you, of course.
Wow.
Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please make sure to give it a thumbs up.
And I will see you soon, hopefully with some more interesting content.
Try and lick that.
No, John. If you die, I want to die too. Oh, I love you. Oh, John.